one of my favorite classes. But
I wish you would have recorded it last week, because like in class,
I do have some of it recorded, and I'm going to try to get it out there. I finally found it was hidden. So like, I have the first part of the lecture last
in
week.
class, like it made sense. But then when I got home and I was doing the homework, I'm like, where did he come up with it? And like, I was like, I did my assignment twice, my homework assignment, and finally I gave up and I was like, forget it, I'm just gonna submit it.
It's tough, especially that chapter 6.
Yeah, it was a 6. I was like, oh my gosh.
But today we'll talk about chapter 7. So much easier.
It seemed easier.
It's a lot easier. So we'll talk a little bit about chapter 7. So first thing I want to do tonight is start off, talk about the midterm, because hopefully none of you have taken that yet.
No. But after chapter 6, I was like, I'm gonna wait.
Do by Sunday or?
Yeah.
Now, is the midterm, is that going to be like a mix with questions and?
Yeah, multiple choice.
Okay.
So in the midterm, what you're going to have is 6 questions, 1 from each chapter.
The long ones? Is that what you're saying?
They're not the long, super long ones. No.
Oh, okay.
I'll kind of give you some samples. Yeah, no. And then I'm trying to remember here. I think there's 14 MC multiple
Oh, no, I
choice.
took pictures with my iPad.
So there's 14 multiple choice for 200 points, 10 points each for all of those. Okay? And so you have multiple choice in there and that.
For each
Oh,
chapter?
it's only 20.
No, that's total.
Oh, total?
Yeah.
That
Oh,
rocks.
okay.
Because, well, just so you understand though, the multiple choice, there will be workout parts of that. You'll have to work out those. So yeah, to get the answer. So they're not real in depth, but you'll have to work out some things to be able to get those answers there. So, yeah, pretty much there should be about 2 or 3 from each chapter in the multiple choice. Obviously it doesn't work out perfect, that's why it's 2 or 3.
Any questions? Quiz for 5, 6. When is the cutoff on that?
11. 4:11.
Tonight? Is that tonight?
Tomorrow.
It is
It says 4:11.
4:11, 12 a.m. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it is. So that is tonight.
I noticed it was
Today's
4.
I'll give you guys tomorrow. I'll send it tonight.
On Sunday, it was, the date for it was 4/8. And so I was like rushing through the last chapter 6 homework, so I could do the quiz. And then when I submitted it changed to 4:11.
I adjusted
Like,
it.
yeah.
Somebody sent me an email.
That's my fault.
And so I made the adjustment too.
No, thank you though. 'Cause I was just like, oh,
I was
yeah.
silly with it. I was going to have to stay up late to do it. 'Cause
Yeah, I did adjust it too.
I was like, oh, I need
Just
to go out to
looking
eat
at
with
it,
those
so.
guys. And I was like, I can't do homework.
Now remember, as we're doing the homework there also, I'm going to be going over. I'm not giving you credit by if you get every problem exactly correct. It's you worked out all the problems just like you're going to come in here. I'm not going to give you if you did your homework and brought it in. If you missed a problem, I'm not going to take away a point or something.
I like that you can
Yeah.
check your work.
That's the nice thing
because-
about it. Yeah. What's that?
I found that this week.
Compliments of you.
I found that out.
Remember that there's at the beginning of this English now, there is a button that you can push, and it walks you through some of the things there too. Where's the course info?
Yeah.
The course info. It's like a training exercise in the first chapter, right in chapter 1.
Oh, it's under what?
I think course info or something like that. There's something there.
Is it a link or a little tab at the top?
Yeah, I believe it might be. Yeah.
Okay, so it's completely separate from the home.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in fact, I mean,
Thanks for doing
I thought it might be right in there.
For some reason, I don't see.
I try to include that in there, just so you'd have some help with some of those things. All right, so let's go through some of the questions here. So I've chosen 3 questions to help prepare you for the test. So if you want to open your books, the first question we're going to do is E2-9. Which is EX, I'm sorry. So that is on page 86.
Because like in our
All right, so as we're looking at this problem here, as I'm looking at EX 2-9, the first thing it tells me here in the first part of the problem, it says that we have billed customers for fees earned. So what would we put in there for that? What are we going to debit? Now we billed them. Was that?
Well, would it be cash?
we're billing them, so.
Oh, okay, so it'd be accounts receivable.
Yeah, accounts receivable, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we'd have got cash, it would be cash. Perfect. So how much was that? It was 48,600, was it?
Yep, yep.
Okay. So that's our debit. What's our credit gonna be?
Fees earned.
Fees earned, sounds good to me. And obviously, that's the same one there. All right, everybody good how we got that? Get this stuff? All right, the next part, it says purchase supplies on account. Now, remember it says on account. So,
Accounts payable.
accounts payable, what are we gonna debit?
Supplies expense.
Just supplies. Remember when we use them, then we'll yeah, then we'll give, how much was it,
75.
1,975, okay. And then accounts payable. As we get to the end of the problem, I'm only gonna do a few of the T accounts, but I'll walk through that. So, the next part here is that we receive cash from customers on account. So, what are we debiting?
Cash?
There we go, cash. And then accounts receivable, we are gonna credit. The reason is we're reducing how much they owe. Never have got the number. 38,000.
31,400.
31,400. 31,400. 38. All right. And then finally, we pay creditors on account 1350. So we pay creditors. So what are we going to debit?
Accounts payable?
Perfect. Accounts payable. So we're going to have accounts payable here. 1350. And then what's going to get a credit?
Cash?
Cash sounds great to me. Because we are reducing our cash and paying that out to accounts payable. So you guys are getting this stuff. All right. So that's the first thing, is all those journal entries that and A that required us. So the next thing is posting entries prepared to the T accounts. So I'm just going to take the T accounts real quick. I'm just going to do cash and accounts payable. I'll let you do the others because I think it's a little while to do all of them, but you guys will get the gist of it all. So if I took cash here, all right. So where do I have cash? Cash right here. So I have 31,400, and then I have cash right here. And you might put the transaction that it was done on each of these here too, if you want to, just to kind of clarify that. It may require you to do that as part of the test. So just so you know. So I give it, this is one, what's that?
It might require us to what?
2, 3. Each of the transactions that we did. Each of the numbers. Just in case they asked you that, was
I
that?
think on the quiz or
On the quiz they
test
made-
before we had, the numbers were there, you just had to identify it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just identify where it came from.
Yeah.
So this came from 3, because it's right here. This came from the 4th one, right here. So that's 4. Just where did it come from? That's all.
Oh.
So that way you remember if you used it on something, you know. That's all. And so accounts payable, let's do that one too. So T account here, I have this one. That's from number 2. And that is, and that would not be the right spot. There we go. I'm at 75, huh? All right. And then the next one, accounts payable right here. That's a debit, and that's number 4. That's 1,350. All right.
So what is the advantage to the T?
It's just a visual for one. We can figure out then is what our balance is in there. So if I have this much in the debit and this much credit, I would then take this away from this one, and then it tells me how much cash I have left in that account. So that just kind of just helps me, it helps them visualize that. So they may require you to do that in the test. Was that?
I never did get that doing homework, and as I looked back over today, I'm like, I don't understand the T thing.
Okay. So all we're doing with the T accounts, you journalized all these, right? You have any, we good with that, the journals?
Yeah.
Okay, so all we're doing is then taking them and putting this is debits, and this is credit. So I'm finding all the debits and credits that I have for each side of that. And then I'm gonna take, since this is cash, my cash should be higher on the debit, remember, from that. So what we're gonna do is then take away all the credits from the cash. We'll add up all my debits.
Oh, okay.
And so then I'll have a balance, just like you'd have a balance. If you look at your bank statement, you see all the positives and negatives in there. And so that's basically the same thing here is we're taking away what we paid out, that's the right side, and this is we're adding together what we've got received. And so the difference there gives me what's left, because that's my balance. So if I on this balance here, it looks like it would be about 30,000. 100?
1350 or 1300.
Is it 1,300?
I know.
I mean, it was supposed to be 1350, so I know it's nothing there. Okay. So my balance would be that. And that's all the T's accounts are doing. It's just a visual aid to kind of help us with the. So you would do that for each of the accounts.
Oh, okay.
So you do it for each one of them. I've only done this for the first two, but you do it for accounts receivable. You do it for fees earned. But as you can see, there's only there's two against their account receivable. There's only one fees earned, and then one supply. So then we figure out our balances, and then it should be balanced. Put it on the assets. What goes there? All right. Questions on this one? No questions at all? Pretty good. Make sure you stop me. So that'll be similar to one of the problems you may see on a test, which is a midterm. All right, let's go to EX 3-6. That is on page 134. I'll give you guys a moment to read through the question while I erase here, and then we'll walk through some additional ones. All right, so looking through this year, there's a balance in the prepaid insurance account before adjustment at the end of the year is $21,700. We need to journalize the adjusting entries required for each of these. So what is the amount of insurance that expired during the year? Well, it's $16,450. So what do we do to journalize that?
Insurance expense?
Insurance expense?
The prepaid insurance.
You got it. All right, so that's what you put. You guys got it down. So insurance expense, remember expenses will be debited, and then we're taking away from prepaid insurance, which is an asset. We're taking away that. So that leaves us with about 11,000 left, roughly, something like that. Or no, 5,000, excuse me, there was only 2,100, I was thinking it was 2,700. So yeah. Okay, so the next part here is the amount of unexpired insurance applicable to the future periods is, so it tells us that. So in B, we just do the same thing. We're just doing a reverse of that. So I would write the same thing here for B. So it's insurance expense again. They're just wording it differently. So I'd have to figure out, well, how much do we use? So I would take the 21,700 minus that 5,000 and change, and that would give me this number. So I just write it the same way.
So where does the 5250 come into play?
The 5250, what we did is they told us, instead of telling us how much we used, they said how much is left. So we would just take the 21,000 minus the 5250.
And that's what.
And that comes up with this number, so we're just gonna then expense the same thing out. So it's basically the same answer is for this one. Just reword it differently. I'm showing that to you is because it may be a little tricky, you may get something like that. I'm not trying to trick you, but just to kind of get a good understanding of where it is.
I think there was someone separate number.
Was that?
Slightly different wording.
It's just exactly, just a slightly different wording on it. And you'll see that nothing's ever exactly the same in accounting, so you know how it's worded, how it's given. So you just gotta kind of quickly think and just kind of work through it and figure out what it's gonna be. Does that make sense to everybody?
So how is that, I mean, you know, I'm just trying to think of taking that test and seeing how I know that it's asking the same thing. I don't.
So in the first question, it tells us the answer, right? It gave it to us. This is how much is used.
Okay, the amount of insurance
Yep.
expired during
Yeah.
the year is.
So the second question tells us, this is what we have left. We started with this. So we need to know how much is used because it wants you to journal, we need to journalize that. And so all it is just, they gave us, what's the end? In the beginning, we gotta figure out how much we used of it.
Oh, okay, right. Okay, yeah, so the 5250 is what we have left, so.
Exactly.
We want to know.
What we actually use when we
Okay.
journalize, yeah. So we use that. So it's the same numbers, but it might not be another problem. Yeah, I gotta go through one of these again. So, all right. Any other questions on 3-6? Okay. All right, the next thing I'm gonna go into then is,
You just skip chapter 6.
well, I want to go over chapter 6 so that way you do well on the test on this one. So what I'm going to do is I will we'll do it on a spreadsheet up here. I'm not even sure you can see it on this camera. I'll try to blow it up a little bit. So what we're going to do is walk through this problem, chapter 6, which is on page
301.
301. Thank you. Good job. All right. So I'll give you guys a moment to take a look at the problem there. This is similar to some of the homework problems we did in chapter 6.
Are you going to put this up online too?
Yeah, I'll put this up there and I'll do it for you if you'd like. All right, so you guys have a chance to take a look at it. So what we're going to do is determine the cost of merchandise sold for each sale and the inventory balance for each sale. So what we're going to do is go through that spreadsheet again that we did at the end of last Wednesday. So I'm going to go ahead and walk through this one with you. So on April 1st, our inventory is we have 120 units at $39. So they give us what we start with. So I'm going to go over to my inventory. There's no purchases that I made. This is what we walk in with. So we have 120, 39, and then I will.
4680.
All right, sounds good. All right, so 4680. All right. Now the next part, it says we have sales of 90 units. Now this one, it doesn't give us a price what we sold it for, because we're not really concerned on this problem what we sold it for. What we are concerned with is the 90 units. Now, one of the things I do want you guys to take a look at too, before where it says A, Above that, what did it say there? What did it say which method we were going to use?
First in, first out.
First in, first out. So the first step in we must use first. Okay? So that's what we want to remember about that. And then the last one in is the last one we'll use. We're going to use that first. Last in, first out. So that means if we bought something yesterday, we are going to sell that today in last in, first out. That's different than first in, first out, where it's the other way around, where we purchase whatever we have in inventory, the oldest stuff, is what we will take first. All right, so we have sales here of 90, and how much did it cost us? 39, because that's what it gives us. And then what does it give us left?
30.
So we get 30 left, and that's at 39 each. We have that figured out, and so that's how much I have left there. Questions so far?
Now, just clarification on this.
Yeah.
When it comes to inventory, you create space for the future inventories as well. So for example, I think it's on the next one.
Yeah, we'll have additional ones there, so we'll have 2 sets of inventories, because one of our sets is worth this much, and our other set maybe this much. So there'll be a difference there in those 2. So let's take a look at that next one, that one we can talk it through.
Okay.
So we purchased 140 units at $40, right? So we purchase, so we put the 14th here. Okay, so we purchased 140, $40 each. All right. So with that, I have what I have up here, right? I'm going to move that down, because I already have that, because that's what we have to use first. So I'm just going to bring my inventory down, and then I'm going to add in what I have over here. And bring that over. And I want to make sure that there's a dollar sign on it. All right. So questions on how we did that? So before we even jump into the next part of the problem here, we are going to hit these 30 first. That's what we're going to do. So if we purchase, if we sell 60, we are going to use that 30 and then pull from this one. So that's what we're going to do. Yes?
So quick question about the
Uh-huh.
averaging system. So do you just put the inventory together in that one?
Yes, if you're averaging it,
And then
yes.
just average the prices, and
Yeah.
that's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it makes it a little easier for that. But for this one, we're going to do that one first and then move to the next one.
Yeah, I'm sorry for confusing. That part was kind of
We want to make sure you get this right. If you guys have any questions, please stop me. All right, so the next one here, let's see. We have a sale of 110 units. All right, so we're going to use 2 different ones, right? So we have 30 left in the $39, right? So that's what I'm going to use first. And then I have to get to, is it 110? So 110, so that means I need 80 here. And then what's my price on that one? 40. All right. All right. So now I wiped out this row here, which we'll just leave as the top row. So that leaves me, if I took 40 away from my 140, or excuse me, 80. Excuse me, 80 away from 140, that gives me how much left? So 60, and that's at $40, and that gives me $2,400 left. So everybody see how I got that? So now I'm going to pull from this one. So that's what I have left. All these we've taken care of. This is what we have left here. All right. So on the 25th, we had another sale of 45. All right. So with that other sale, we obviously took it from 40 because that's all we have left. And So we took it from that one. That will give me 15 left over, right? Because I'm gonna have 60 minus the 45 gives me 15 left over. And then I'll total this up here. So that gives me 15. Let's put it up there. All right. Questions? You guys are doing really well in getting this stuff.
Funny thing is, going through the quiz and the homework, it didn't quite make sense, but now I thought about it, and now we're going through this, it makes perfect sense.
Is that okay?
Figures.
Well, I'll prepare you for this.
That's a huge part.
All right, so on April 30th, we have our last thing we're going to do here is repurchase 160 units. So we are going to carry down what we have previously. I'm going to put the 160 here. It looks like we purchased it at $43, putting it there. Then our total cost on that is $68.80. We don't have the cost of merchandise sold. I'm going to bring this down because we still have this much left. And then I will add in my 160. So now I have my both sets there. So if I were to sell anything else, looks like we're done now on the problem. But I have 15 here in quantity and 160 here. So I would have to sell this first. Those 15 would go first, and then I start reaching into that 160. All right, so then it asks for balances, doesn't it? So I'm going to put balances here. And so what I want to do for my balances here is I need to do all my cost of goods sold here. Excuse me, all my purchases and my cost of goods sold. That gives me that. And then there's my total cost of goods sold. So now I've added all those together. And then in here, I'm just going to do the last two because that's all I have left, remember. So the 600 here, and the 6,800. And so those should be all your values that you have. And for this, you don't have to do the purchases, this question, but I did it anyway. Right, which cost us for purchases. So this gives me my total cost of merchandise sold, and this gives me my inventory that we have left over. Starting to sink in. So since the price rose, it would be, so the question B was that asked for, based on the data, preceding data, would you expect the inventory to be higher or lower using LIFO or first out method?
What was I don't understand? Like, how do you, what do you need to look at on here to determine?
So since it's higher, since this is higher, because we see the prices going up right there. So it means we are selling this first, all of these first. So we're keeping the higher ones in there.
So the total cost would be lower than if it was LIFO?
The total cost here, or I mean, the total cost, you mean this total cost of the inventory?
It's an inventory cost.
Yeah.
Of inventory?
Yeah.
Okay, right, yeah, so if you use LIFO, it would be less. It would be less.
Yeah, it'd be less because of that. So because of that, now if we went the other way, it would be the other way around. Sometimes the price will fall. If we're talking electronics or something like that, that goes the other way versus other things. All right, so questions? You guys feel pretty comfortable with those?
Yeah,
No, you do?
Have that one. It's the other questions with the FIFO and LIFO that I missed, even after I talked to you.
Okay.
Well, I'll get to you after.
Yeah, we can talk afterwards, or I can go over, if you have a specific question and one of the problems, because I don't mind going over a specific one.
Yeah, it's on my quiz.
Okay. We can take a look at that and then walk through it. All right. So that kind of gives you a few of the questions similar questions that you will see on the quiz, or midterm, excuse me. So so make sure you complete that by Sunday evening. All right. So now what I'm going to do is jump into chapter 7.
I have a question on it. You know, you were going to post this where so that we can.
It'd be an angel under week 4.
Okay.
Under week 4 stuff will set there. Remind me as we're stepping out, go to the break, and I'll pop it in there right now. All right. So what we're going to do is in chapter 7, it won't be as difficult as inventory, because inventory is not an easy thing. And I'm in trouble here. No. In chapter 7, what we're going to talk about is cash handling, that type of stuff. And you remember the first day I talked a little bit about SOX, Sarbanes-Oxley. Now Sarbanes-Oxley was put in because of all the things that happened. You guys, many of you probably remember back in the early 2000s with Enron and WorldCom and all those type of things there. So what they put this in there for, and what you're going to see in the chapter is, they put specific guidelines in handling money. So there's a separation of duties. So if I'm the person that receives the cash, I can also do the accounting on that too. Because if I were able to do that, what could I do?
Fraud.
Yeah, I can fraud. Yeah, it does all those type of things. So there's separation of duties. So many places that you may work that may be publicly traded, what they do is have somebody that takes it in, somebody else handles it, and maybe somebody else may even do the deposit. That way everything is not done by the same person, and it reduces the opportunity for those things for those type of things to happen.
So make sure you're working with someone who has the same priorities as you, right?
Now, obviously, that doesn't stop colluding.
Yeah.
But what it does do is it provides another safeguard there. And so that's what we'll talk about walking through a lot of these problems today, is if going through the chapter, and that's why pretty much we'll just talk about how to journalize these things and the separations and duties and those type of things throughout this chapter. So it won't be as difficult as inventory. It'll actually be a lot nicer than inventory for you. So questions on that? Did you guys get a chance to look at chapter 7? At least take a look and see what it's all about. As you can see by looking at some of the problems, they're not as difficult as doing the inventories, LIFO and FIFO.
More journaling, like.
Yeah, more journal entries and those type of things. And so we'll walk through some of those today. All right. So let's take a look at the first problem I have up there, which is 7-3. Well, that's the PE one. And we'll do the A. So basically what we're doing here is basically what you would do as a bookkeeper. And just kind of making sure everything balances. So yes, we get a statement from the bank, but that doesn't match how much cash we have in that account. It just doesn't match. Well, there's reasons why, because the thing's in transition. Yes, we're in a different age than it used to be. It used to be a lot worse, obviously, when we had paper checks going every which way and going back and forth. There was a huge gap there in trying to figure all that out. Now with electronic fund transfers, it's a lot easier, but we still have that gap. And there's things that we have to take a look at to make sure that everything balances out. All right, so I'll give you guys a moment to read PE 7-3A. Okay, so I have a bank section of the reconciliation, and then I also have the company, that's reconciliation. I just wrote it up for you. So read the question. It says, what is the adjusted balance of the bank reconciliation? I'm going to do both here so we can take a look at both of those, because in the second part we're going to have to figure it out anyways, the company. So in the bank section of the reconciliation here, what does our bank records show? Anybody have any ideas there?
11,655, that's what you're referring to.
Is that our bank records? Yeah, it's a company records. Let's do the bank one first, so it's just 13,450. So we have 13,450 here. All right. Do we have any deposits that are in transit?
3,000.
3,000. All right, so 3,000. 3,000, we got to add to it. And then do we have any checks that are outstanding?
6640.
6640. All right. Anything else we need to take a look at here? Nope, that's pretty good there. And a good sample of that is on page 334 in your book. You can take a look at that one there also. So you can see the breakdown of how we did that there. All right, so what do we come up with here? 9810, perfect. Okay, so now we got to check and see if the companies, we're going to reconcile this. So what does our company bank, our company show as our statement? What we have? What does the company have?
11,655.
11,655.
55.
55. Okay, perfect. All right. So what are we going to take a look at here? We have a couple of issues that have come up. One was our bounce check that came back, non-sufficient funds. So we had some problem that we have to pay any fees to?
The service charges.
Service charges. So let's take away the service charge here, and then we had, how much was the non-sufficient funds? Was that 1,800? All right. So what does that equal? I hope it equals the top one. That's what we're doing, is reconcile, making sure everything's right.
Yeah.
It's right, same? Perfect. All right. So everything's good. And the reason we don't know this is we haven't gotten the notification maybe of this, or we just haven't pulled it out of here yet. And then we haven't taken out of the bank what we owe for that service charge for this issue here. So we want to make sure all those that are there. All right, so the next part of the problem, it asks us to, let's see, journalize any necessary entries for Eve's company based on the bank reconciliation. All right, so now we got to journalize this. So somebody gave us a check that wasn't good. So what are we going to do? Any thoughts? Go back to that page 334 and it kind of gives you a walkthrough on that.
Debit. Accounts receivable.
Accounts receivable, good. So we have accounts receivable. The reason we're debiting this is we're putting that money, they owe us that money still. So now we're putting that back over there to them. And then we have a miscellaneous expense of 45. All right, and then our cash is what's the last part of that. Because we're losing that cash. We thought we had this in there. Then we had to pay for that. And so now we've lost cash of 1845 because of what has happened.
I have a question. So, if you're journalizing the bank reconciliation, so why are you doing the stuff for the company?
We're doing this here because we didn't know this had happened.
Okay, you said that earlier and I didn't.
Yeah, we didn't know this would happen, so that's why we're journalizing it now. All this stuff here is we're making sure that our stuff balances with theirs. So most of the time, hopefully you won't have balance checks, so you'll know already it should match what you have in your accounts. Maybe a couple adjustments if there's a couple things out there, something like that. But for the most part, it shouldn't be too bad. But then you have this balance check here. So we don't have that listed, we haven't done that yet, we just found out. That came in our statement.
You'd have to do the company section anyway.
Yes, you'd have to do the company section. Anyways, you've got to read that
Okay.
there. So on here, that's why the accounts receivable, we're putting it back to them that they owe us. We have that expense for this. And what I would probably do too is I might have changed that to charge them for that company. But for this what we've done here, we're just putting that to miscellaneous expense for a insufficient funds. And then cash, we're taking away from our cash because that check was no good. And we had to do that service fee. All right, questions? All right, let's take a look at E7-12. That is EX 7-12. I'll let you read through the question here. What we're going to do is an entry for cash sales, and then basically what you're doing if you're a cashier, it's not balancing. You probably know a little bit about that, right? So this is the entries that you make because of those type of things, and it does happen quite a bit, actually. I'm going to erase this information I have here. I'll give you guys a moment to kind of work it out. Let me give you a page that might be helpful for you. Let's walk through it. All right, so what are we getting in? Well, what are we counting first off? Because we're now going to make a journal entry here. So we're counting all of our actual cash, right? So we have cash. And then how do we get that cash? Transactions. So we'll call those sales. So then we're getting in from cash. We have sales. Now we have cash that is also short or over. And so that's where we'll have either a debit or credit depending on which one it is. All right, so how much cash do we actually have?
14,850.
14,850, okay. So we have, and then how much do we have in sales?
So that's 114,975.
114,975? Okay. So we have a difference there. Well, where are we going to put it?
Cash short over.
Yep, cash short over. How much is that? 125? The reason is because balance 1. But that shows us that it's short because we have less cash than we have sales. Now, if I'm the manager there, I'm trying to figure out what's going on here, especially if that's much money. What's that?
Spending it ton of time going back through receipts. trying to
Yeah.
Figure out where it's at.
Exactly. And a lot of companies have thresholds too. If you're within $1 or something like that, it's not worth the time.
Whatever.
What's that?
I said it's whatever at that point.
Yeah, so, and then we just put it in there. Get that out. Ignore that. So, all right, questions on that? That's all there is to that question. Is all we had to do was journalize that. So we just had cash coming in, and we counted, and then our sales, and then we were over. And if we were the other way, if this was less than this would be over here. Would that be it over? All right. So far, so good this chapter? This is easy? All right, let's do 7-18 on page 349. This is a little more work.
I like the ones that have one line.
One line. To kind of read through that. So those are all things that are happening there. Continue to read through it, and now we'll kind of start preparing this. So we're going to reconcile both again. I'm going to actually write this out a little more. I'm going to give you guys so on page 333, you can see a bank reconciliation. Now, I'm going to make it a little simpler on mine. I'm not going to have 2 columns. I'm just going to have 1, just because we don't have multiple checks. We have total checks. So 333. We're on EX 718. How much was that in there? The according to them?
$31,080.
$80?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So $31,080. All right. Just write that for this year then. All right. Oh no, that's for the company. The company revenue show that.
38,280.
Yeah, so 280. So we have a difference there, as you can see. So we have 38,280. So what we're going to do, we're going to get to that one in just a moment here, the company side. It's 38,280. Okay, I'll make sure I get that first one right. All right. So 38,280. So then, do we have any deposits that have not shown up yet?
That haven't showed up?
9,700.
9,700.
That would be deposit transit.
Yeah. Add deposit transit. And then maybe pending or something like that, you know. We take pictures of our checks now, and gotta wait.
Where are you getting 9,700?
I'm showing 58.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one.
Are you looking at that one?
Apologize.
Okay.
So 5850?
Good night.
I was just gonna
All right, so
say-
5850. All right.
Sorry about that.
No problem. I did that when I first looked at it. I looked at the top one. All right, so what does that give us there? Let's see. All right. Now we're going to deduct some outstanding checks, right? How many How much in outstanding checks do we have?
12,460.
1,460. All right.
Now, is this how it's going to ask us to do it on the homework?
Did. What's that?
Is this how it's going to ask us to do it on the homework?
Yeah, it should be somewhere
like with
this
the
way.
add, deduct.
Yeah, so you're gonna add and deduct and figure out what your balance is. So this is our adjusted balance here. This is our adjusted balance for that bank statement. Now we're gonna take a look at hours for the company. So cash balance by the company. So I'm gonna put a line here, just so we know this is separate, okay? Hopefully I can get it all in on this board. All right, what was that number you gave it to me earlier, 31080?
Yes.
Is that it? Okay, good. All right, so what type of errors? Do we have a return check or anything like that? So what you probably want to do is with this book or with that is just kind of check off the things that you've done on all of those. You have all these letters and numbers. So just check off what you've completed. So on the 6 there. So we've done the company's records, we've done the bank statements, we've done the outstanding checks, we've done the deposit in transit. Okay, and number 5, this is a check for 180 and payment of the account was recorded incorrectly as a 10. So what will we have to do to make up that difference? How much is that? Yeah. So we recorded as 180 and it's really 810. Yeah, 630? Yeah. So 630. Now we're going to add or subtract that. We put it as 180. Should have been 810. So we would add to our bank account because it should be higher, right? So we're going to add that in. And we're just going to put error to check. Okay. So what does that give us here? 31.7, 710. We good? Are there anything else there? What's number 6 say?
Service charge.
Service charge. So am I going to add or subtract that? So we're going to subtract that. So we're going to deduct service charge. All right, so that gives me 31,670. That's my adjusted balance. Do they balance?
Yeah.
Good. That means you're done. If they don't balance, we've got a problem.
I'm just like looking
All right, so any questions on that one? No questions? You guys ready for a little break? Okay, let's take a little break. Then we'll come back. I will do the last problem here, and then we'll jump into chapter 8. And we'll work on some problems in chapter 8. And then I'll come back around and see if there's any other questions you guys want to ask me about the midterm.
I go out and I get back in.
I believe so.
Yes, I'm bad.